Hello, everyone, and welcome to Think Like a Dog podcast, hosted by Andreia and Millie Travis. In this podcast, we discuss how to build the best relationship with your dog. From rescues to reactivity, we'll cover it all. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Think Like a Dog podcast. We are on episode 14, and today we're going to talk about dog parks. So dog parks, I think as a dog owner, many people have experienced dog parks at some point in their lives or thought about it. And the truth is they're not the best place to be with your dog. I would say, I took Kane. I think Kane was the only one of our dogs that we actually took to a dog park a few times, and thankfully nothing happened, but it was chaotic. It was like 40 dogs running around off leash. Kane would go off somewhere. I would not know where he was. And in the meantime, I had Poochie in a little sling bag and dogs would be surrounding me, like smelling what that is inside this bag.
It's a whole dog.
Yeah, it's a whole dog. And then thankfully nothing happened to us, but I have heard many stories, with that. Wasn't as good of an experience for some people.
Yeah.
So
I've got a saying, it's not if, but when you're going to have an incident, whether it's like an injury, whether that's from a fight or just running around like a madman, and ACLs, sprains, you name it, or sicknesses too. I mean, it's not if, but when something is going to go wrong.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's chaos most of the time at your average dog park. It is chaos. And it is not necessarily fun for every single dog. It can look like fun, but some dogs it's chaotic and it's overwhelming for a lot of dogs and humans as well. Every time I have to do a session at a dog park, I struggle because there's so much going on, and it's really hard to ask the dog to calm down in such a chaotic environment.
When I can't even calm
exactly.
down.
Exactly.
Yeah. To start this episode, I wanted to start it with a dog park rap I wrote.
Okay.
all right.
Just so everyone is aware, Andreia and I have not heard this. This is news to us, so I am very excited.
All right.
Let's can you bring me in on an air horn and a beat?
Oh wait.
All right. Air horn.
And then Millie, do you have a beat for me? Just make one up. Okay. This was all a ploy to get you to try to do a beat on the mic. I don't have a rap. I'm sorry. Really sorry.
I shouldn't have shown her the soundboard before this because she got really excited about that horn.
I do have notes though, so that's
okay. Good. Do you want to rap the notes? This is my team.
They don't
These
rhyme.
are the people I hire. That's fine.
No.
Okay. So do you want to maybe start off on something, since you open this up with a rap and you're not delivering? Why don't you start off with what notes that you've taken?
Okay.
All right. It's her punishment.
Well, I've had quite a few sessions recently where people mention that their dog gets aggressive or forward when dogs rush up to their face at the dog park, and they would like to work on that. And I say that's kind of they should. That's not a natural way for dogs to greet each other. It's not
humans.
In general, that's kind of rude, and that's not a very neutral thing to do. So I don't blame them.
Right.
I would say maybe don't go to the dog park, or try to advocate for your dog in those moments. But it's I've had a lot of people, not just clients, but people just in conversation bringing up issues that they have with their dog, specifically at dog parks, which kind of makes me want them to look a little closer at
and I think
why that is.
Okay, so I think the intention behind using dog parks, just like a lot of things, it's in the right place. You want to exercise your dog. You want your dog to be socialized. And it looks fun. But you also, you see a lot of dogs there most of the time that are very, very happy-go-lucky, very high energy. But I would say probably 75% of dogs are what we call dog selective, not dog friendly. I think just like it is for a human to, just as unlikely as it is for a human to like every single person they meet, and just as unlikely as it is for a human to not like every single person that they meet. It's the same kind of gradiency with dogs. So, most dogs are dog selective. So they're going to like some dogs and they're not going to like other dogs. You're not going to see the dog selective or the dog aggressive dogs at the dog park. You're just going to see the happy-go-lucky ones. So I get a lot of owners that are like, well, I just see all these happy dogs running around. Why can't my dog be that type of dog? And I always tell them, because those dogs are on walks, those dogs are being socialized in a little bit of a healthier way.
I also think though, their idea of a happy dog looks like might not be what is actually happening at the dog park. I think there's a lot of like over arousal, over excitement, over stimulation.
I think that's a big misconception in the animal or in the dog training world. In dog owner world, especially, excitement does not equal happiness. I mean, especially to the dog. And I think I've said that before in an episode. Excitement can actually be a precursor to a lot of reactivity or to anxiety, a lot of negative emotions. Excitement doesn't equal happiness, but I think going back, like I said, the intention is in the right place from the human. They want to exercise their dog. They want to socialize their dog. I think as trainers, that's probably one of the things that a lot of trainers, and it's very rare to find this, agree on, is we don't like dog parks. It is very, very rare to find anything that the majority of dog trainers are going to agree on. Very rare. Most of us do not like dog parks. And that is for a number of reasons, behaviorally. And then also, with my history as a vet tech, I also don't like them for a number of medical reasons too. But they are common, very common.
Yeah. But how often too do you hear people say like, I take my dog to the dog park every week and he never gets tired. He comes home just as amped. It's just a different.
Okay. So the reasons that I don't like, cause this will be quicker than covering the reasons I don't like them for the dog parks for behavioral reasons. But the reasons I don't like them for medical reasons are, one, you don't know if everybody's spayed and neutered. You don't know if everybody who's in heat. And that can be tough situation. You don't want to bring your dog to the dog park and come home with your pregnant dog. You also have a lot of testosterone in there if you have two intact males that are adults. But I think the even bigger reason, you don't know if everybody's vaccinated. You don't even know if everybody has a rabies vaccine. And especially if you're going to walk your child in there, that is terrifying to me, because I don't know if that dog has any sort of history with kids, right? Like if that dog has ever been around kids before, let alone other dogs, right? And you don't know if that dog has any sort of diseases that could be spread, like kennel cough or
Giardia.
Yeah. I mean, there's intestinal parasites that your dog can get, not necessarily even if you go into a dog park that there's no other dogs in there, if, the other dog owner doesn't clean up after their dog, now there can be intestinal parasites in the ground that your dog can kind of pick up on or pick up from. So it's just not the cleanest place to bring your dog. There are absolutely, like I said, there's healthy ways to work your dog off of a dog park, or healthy ways to incorporate it into your training, depending on your dog's behavioral issues. But I think medically, it's just, it's not a gamble. I mean, it's not a risk I'm willing to take. There's way too much unknown about the other dogs.
Yeah. I used to take Obi to the dog park all the time just because I wanted to exercise him, and he would freak out when he saw other dogs on leash. But if I let him off leash into a dog park, he would usually figure it out at some point. But just recently I actually took him to a dog park by my house and worked him. I brought a place board, a long line, and just worked him from a safe distance near it. And just some of the stuff that I saw,
it's awful.
It's the wild, wild west. I saw owners open their car door in the parking lot. The dogs run to the gate. Other people in the park let the dogs in, and the owner didn't even get out of the car.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Dogs going into the dog park and back out.
They're just being dropped off at a playground.
Yeah. just by themselves. It was wild. A lot of almost fights breaking out. That's the other thing about dog parks is there's almost always like high value resources just kind of out and about, whether somebody brings it themselves or somebody before left it. There's usually some sort of balls, toys. People bring treats in there. Just crazy.
Oh my God. But with, every dog owner takes their dog to the dog park with the intention of giving them a good time and helping
Let them be dogs.
socialize and make friends and whatnot. But what would you say would be a good alternative to, because we talked about exercising your dog, but let's say you live in a condo in an apartment, you don't really have, the backyard for them to let them out. You do take them on walks, but you want to give them that freedom to run, to play fetch. Where would you look for a time at the dog park? Like what would be the alternative?
There's this really cool website. It's called Sniff Spot. So you can actually rent people's yards. And I mean, obviously you have to pay them. Some of these yards, especially in Georgia, we're lucky, to have not be right next to Atlanta. So you can find like an acre of land that's fenced in and rent it for an hour. And then also it's great for your dog reactive dogs, your dogs that, your owner just wants to either work on off leash stuff or just let the dog run around for a little while, but you want to make sure that there's no other dogs there. You can set up a profile. I think there's an app too, and just book a hour at this field, and make sure that nobody else is going to be there. You're not going to have anybody walking in, it's all fenced in and you know what you're getting. I think that is one of the coolest inventions. And if you have a yard that's really, really big, you can sign up to have it be,
good. I didn't know that was a thing. I'm going to do that.
Really?
As soon as I get home.
Yeah. You can sign up to have it, where other people can book your yard and use it for their dogs. And you can make sure that, you can make money off of your big backyard. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's
I
awesome.
used to do something a little less official. I would find like baseball fields or like parks nearby that had a fully fenced in like baseball field, and on off season or on like weekdays, there's no one there. And usually the gates are open, and I would just take Obi and work on like long line or like e-collar stuff in an open field.
Tennis courts I see people doing that with their dogs as well. It's not as, you're not going to get that beautiful video of the dog running in, a field of grass and with the sun shining, but the dog's still going to be able to run. But then I go back to like, how important is that, right? Should that be what you're looking like? Should that be your goal over a good walk? Absolutely not. I think if you walk your dog every day and maybe once a month you take your dog out to just go run, fine. That's even a lot for me. I keep wanting to share it on my Instagram, but I haven't yet. But it's this guy does wildlife footage of wolves migrating, and it's all these pictures and videos of these wolves just like calmly walking, calmly moving. And I keep wanting to share it and say, where's the excitement here? There is none, because it's not natural when we're talking about migration, when we're talking about leading and following. It's not necessary in those moments. And I think when you're walking your dog, you are practicing this like sacred ritual of migration with your dog. It's something that is instinctual to them. And that to me is way more important than watching my dog just like running around in a field. I want to build a bond with them. Now, don't get me wrong. Is it fun? Absolutely. It's fun to walk, to watch your dog run around, but it wouldn't be something I would feel bad about or look to like do that every single week with my dog.
It's not the most productive way to exercise your dog, I would say either.
Yeah.
And at those places, you don't realize that your dog is actually learning bad behaviors, right? They're practicing those
unlearning good behaviors too.
Yeah. So even if because there are places that I know have become pretty popular. It's like bars, outside bars that you take your dog to. And I guess they do they make you check vaccines?
Yes,
yeah.
Those do require,
which is great.
But then you got a bunch of owners drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Dogs running around.
It's like a step up from dog park because they do check those. But then and then it's also like, it stays in the same balance scale because now the owners have access to alcohol and then the dogs are running around. And I think there's a lot of mixtures there, right? So if you, with those places, I know most of them require your dog to be neutered and for vaccines, but also it comes to the point where if your dog is off leash, unattended, and they're meeting other dogs, then they're also practicing those bad behaviors or unlearning, like we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. And learning that like you aren't really a part of that interaction.
Yeah.
Which
wait, what sound can we play for that? Because that was like that's
Was
an
that a
important
good one?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
let me
important.
see.
she's gonna. Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Wow. That was a really good one. Okay. But I mean, that's the key is that you aren't involved in that at all. And that's probably the problem in a lot of dog parks is the owners are sitting there on their phone. They're just kind of, it's almost becoming like a social club for the humans. And then nobody even realizes that the dogs are like getting really intense and then a fight happens. And I mean, I have had so many clients back when I used to take my dog to the park too, tell me that the police got called out because the dogs got in a fight and then the owners got in a fight about whose fault it was.
Oh my God.
And it's because we go there and we don't advocate, we don't interrupt, we don't put ourselves in the equation at all. Like you guys were saying, it is good for those like parks, kind of the bar parks things. It's great that they check vaccines. It's great that everyone has to be spayed and neutered. And it's great to have people there that work there that are sort of there to interrupt, right? It's not just the owners that are responsible for their dogs. It's definitely a step up, right? So if you have to go from like levels of socialization, your lowest would be zero socialization, right? Not attempting to socialize your dog whatsoever. Then it would be dog parks. Then it would be like your I mean, what do you call them? I mean, I know. Yeah, it's like bar parks that is like a club almost, right? So they have the records, they have everything. They have people there that work there that help.
It's essentially,
monitor.
it's like a daycare kind of, but yeah.
Yeah. And then you have your actual daycares, which is one step up from that, which you drop the dog off and, somebody is in charge of working there. And then you have either your structured daycares or you have walking your dog, you have walking your dog with another dog. That is probably your highest level of socialization, of getting your dog to just move with another dog and you still lead that interaction.
And dogs don't need that, like you were saying, they don't need that over excitement to get drained. Like our dogs, they go to day camp and they're just low, like they're just walking around, they're just practicing, socializing with other dogs, play skills, and they come home drained. Every time and every time I walk my dogs, just because we have a fenced yard and there isn't really a big necessity of us actually walking them on a leash, but if they have a lot of built up energy and they haven't, it's been raining or whatever, I just get them and I walk them in 2 circles all around the house. And then I put them back in and they're so tired because I do, like you guys say, like, let them go to the, use the go pee, whatever, right before you start walking. And then you just focus on your leash skills. Like as you're walking, you're, making sure that you're keeping their attention on you, that you're having a really structured walk. And when we do that, they get drained, like super tired.
It's the difference between doing that and what happened the last time that Kane and Bubbles got into it, and that is probably why there's so many fights at the dog park, because there's so much intensity. There's so much chaos there. And that's not unfair for a dog to want to correct that.
Oh yeah.
That's I think the key is that, and I think that's probably why dog owners get in fights there, is because you've got one owner who says, well, my dog was just trying to protect themselves or just trying to calm your dog down because your dog was, not taking no for an answer. And then the other owner saying, well, my dog is really friendly and it just wanted to play. Neither dog had the wrong intention. It's just they were set up for failure from the get-go because nobody was advocating for them.
Exactly. And I think socialization for dogs is something you have to like really hit on hard for them to be well socialized well. And a lot of dogs at dog parks just they aren't properly socialized. So they don't take those signals from the other dog. When one dog is communicating that they're uncomfortable or that they want the other one to back off, the other dog might not understand that. And if no one's there to step in and advocate for that, it's trigger stacking. It just builds and builds and builds. And
none of the dogs are at fault because it's like, okay, if you go to a bar, right, and this guy starts bothering you and you say no, and over time, right? I mean, you're going to get more and more and more upset. The more he starts bothering, he continues to bother you. And, you know, in those moments, his intention might just be to talk to you, or maybe his intention is to just say, hey, like, you know, you've got something in your teeth or something, right? But I mean, his intention might be fine, but you also are not in the wrong of being like, this is enough. I said no.
Yeah.
Right. So it's that miscommunication that the only way that dogs solve it is through, I mean, putting their foot down and using their teeth. That's how dogs eventually will solve conflicts. I mean, that's the only way that they have, especially if you put them to like push them to that point.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot at dog parks, a lot.
Yeah. And you don't often see dogs enter the dog park in a calm or neutral way at all. It's pulling their owners all the way in. It's excitement. Gate opens, boom. And then it's rushed greetings. It's
yeah. I mean, okay, so let's talk about that. And I get that a lot too of, I mean, I get so many dogs and clients that are like, well, my dog got in a fight at the dog park. And, you know, when I took him to my vet to have him stitched up, they recommended you. And so the first thing that I think about and I ask about if the owner is truly like intent on like, we're going back to the dog park, which fine, not my dog. I can show you how like the best way of doing that. It's still not going to be great, but let's try to get it a little bit better, tweak it. The first thing is how they walk in, how they exit the car, right? So if it is on leash, which it should be, even if your dog normally goes right to the gate. I did a session with Jess and her dog reactive dog Zoe outside of a dog park, and we were rushed over the course of an hour by 7 or 8 dogs.
Yeah.
That just the people would open the door and the dog would come. I mean, we had at one time 4 dogs rush this dog.
That's exactly what happened when I took Obi that day. It was multiple dogs rushing us, but luckily I knew enough to like get out in front of them and like basically use spatial pressure to ask them to move away before it became an issue.
And the response from the owner is always they're friendly. Yeah. That doesn't mean that my dog that is sitting outside of the dog park, not in there, is right. And that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to be here. Yeah. I think that is one of the most entitled things you can say as an owner is my dog is friendly. Well, you're in a public space and my dog doesn't have to be friendly to be here. My dog is on a leash or on a muzzle, or my dog is controlled. Yours isn't, right? And that's not fair. So your dog, if you were going to the dog park, you better be walking that dog in on a leash. And I always tell people, whether it's your average daycare or dog park or whatever, if you cannot walk to that park or past that park without your dog pulling you, you shouldn't be going in. You shouldn't be going in. You don't have the relationship with your dog to keep them safe in that park. So if you're being pulled towards that door or towards that gate or towards the front door of your daycare, you should not be going in. You've got more work to do first.
What would you guys say is the best way to advocate for your dog when another dog comes up to them? I know spatial pressure is a big one, and we can go a little bit more in depth about like how to use spatial pressure at that moment where a dog is like running towards your dog. How would you
at the dog park or like off, like when you're on a walk?
Even a dog park, I would say on a walk too. I see some scenarios where there's an off leash dog, they rush to the dog. Like, how would you advocate for your dog or stop that dog from running towards your dog and just
First of all, the first thing is sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't. And I mean, you can't control. I tell people it's like asking what to do if a drunk driver's on the road. You can't control other people's dogs. You can try your best to advocate for yours, but it's the scariest part about taking a walk, especially if you own a reactive dog. Even my dog is friendly. I don't walk in my neighborhood because of the off-leash dogs. I won't, because it's not fair to him to be charged by other dogs. But yeah, I mean, spatial pressure. So meaning, here, do you want to explain it since you just had to do it?
Yeah,
at the dog park?
There's not a lot of situations where I have my personal dog like off leash around a lot of other dogs. So typically he's on a leash in these situations. And I just move him behind me. I put him in here behind me. I get in front of him and I just try to make my energy and like presence really big to the other dog. And I'll do a loud like go or just get big, get in front of my dog and try to stop it before it's fully committed to the idea of coming to us. But I mean, there's, especially in our neighborhood, a lot of little dogs that people leave out in the front yard that will rush us on the walk. And in those situations, I can't really keep the dog away. So even those tactics don't work. I usually just keep moving and I try to keep Obi on my side and just use either, I mean, I'll bump it with my leg. I'll like, you know, you got to do what you got to do. I'm not going to like kick a little dog, but I'll use my legs to bump it away from us.
It's going to be nicer than what Obi would do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But there's also, I mean, I think I get more nervous when I see a friendly dog off leash, because normally that friendly dog is used to going up to every single dog and allowed to go up to every single dog. Yeah. So I can normally bet I see that friendly dog off leash, I know that dog's making its way all the way to me and it's not slowing down. If I see what people might, you know, your average person might deem as like an aggressive or reactive dog off leash, most of the time I can move that dog away just by like putting my arm out and walking into them, because they don't want the fight, right? They're just as unsure about my dog that's next to me. Because the best way of surviving as any species is less conflict. So they're going to move away if they can. But it's the friendly ones that I freak out about when I'm walking, because I'm like, you're probably used to going up to every single dog you see. So why would I be any different walking my, you know, reactive dog here? That's why when people say, don't worry, he's friendly, it scares me even more, right? Because then I know that dog is not slowing down.
Yeah. So when you're taking your dog on a walk and, you know, there's that friendly dog that comes over, does spatial pressure typically work on those dogs, or how would you, or are you more focused on keeping your dog at a calm space than moving this happy-go-lucky dog away from you?
Spatial pressure will work on the more like sensitive, reactive ones. And I will move into them. Like if I see a dog at a distance, I will start walking towards them with my dog behind me if I need to, and then continue back on my way. The friendly ones, I normally will put, you know, whatever dog I'm walking behind me, and then reach out to grab the collar of the friendly one. And you can normally tell, or at least, you know, I can, and I know you can from a distance, is this dog going to be happy go lucky, and then just get the surprise of its life when when it meets my reactive dog next to me. Or, you know, or is this dog like truly charging us? Because that's rare. It's rare to see like a truly like very forward dog charging you from, you know, wherever. And the kind of the cases that I would see that is if the dog like busts out of the gate, because then they're going to come at you with that energy, or the busts out the front door. But normally if the dog is like in the yard off leash already, if it's running towards you, it's probably running towards you as like, this is the best day of its life. And then you just like, it's like that slow-mo of like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like stop what you're doing. But I'll normally grab that other dog's collar if it's wearing one, or I carry a second leash with me.
Okay. Do you guys believe in any of those like the devices that they say that you like there's whistles or there's like horns or there's ultrasonic things?
Yeah.
Do you guys, is that good to carry around just in case?
Kind of the mindset of like, aside from like physically harming another dog, I will do whatever I need to do to advocate for my dog, or whatever dog I'm walking. So yeah, I think those tools are out there for a reason. I'm not gonna use it as my first resort, but yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, depending on if the reactive dog, like let's say I am walking a reactive dog and it doesn't have a muzzle, because let's say it, you know, for some reason it's comfortable in a muzzle and I just took it off and it's still on a leash. It doesn't have to be. And I know for a fact that whatever I do, if that dog gets to this dog is going to hurt them, right? So anything that I could potentially do is not going to be any amount of damage that the dog I'm walking, you know, obviously not my personal dog, but a lot of dog reactive dogs that I work with, I know that the most damage that can happen to anybody is if that dog gets to us. So yeah, I mean, there's those pet correctors that happen. I mean, I think my parents are both runners. My mom carries like the pet corrector because she runs at, you know, really early in the morning and, you know, even in her neighborhood. But if an off-leash dog kind of comes out, she wants to be able to kind of move it away and scare it away, because she doesn't know. She doesn't know if they're going to be nice or not.
Yeah. So pet corrector, you like that one?
I really like, because it's enough of a sound. Okay. But then if I take a pack walk, like if I'm walking multiple dogs, I really like to bring a walking stick so I can use that as like spatial pressure as well, while also keeping the dogs behind me.
Which you'll see in some of our videos. We use like the crop or like the flag kind of in a similar way. So you could kind of learn how to implement that on the walk.
Yeah, we don't use it to like hit them. It's more about just like using it as an extension of our body to kind of either keep them with us or move them back, and to advocate. But when people walk into most of the time there's like that holding area at the dog park. When people walk into that area, whether it's on leash or off leash, most of the time, all of the dogs in the dog park are already at that second gate. So then you have to ask your dog to either very like confidently or however, whoever your dog is, you have to ask your dog to like move through a sea of other dogs that they don't know. That is not natural to any species. And I don't care what anybody says. Like, I mean, imagine if the first day of high school, you walk in and all of the students are right at the front door. Can you imagine? I mean, in the dog world, it's not natural to just immediately play with another dog. They are, pack animals, meaning they have like their social families. I know, we can use the word pack, we can use the word family. It doesn't matter. What matters is that they form groups, right? And those groups it's not normal for them to be like, cool, this is my group, this is your group. Let's have our groups play together because there's territory issues. And so when you ask a single dog to move through a sea of other dogs that are like hoarding around this gate, why wouldn't that be an issue? And I don't know how it's not an issue more often. But I think that's probably the biggest time that a fight will break out is when a new dog walks in. And then most of the time they'll sort of, if they do move through it, they'll move through it and it'll be kind of tricky for a little bit. And if they do move through it, they'll all kind of move away and kind of, disperse a little bit. And then the other time would be if there is a high value resource like a ball, or if there's a dog that is completely out of control, then absolutely there's going to be a pack fight. There's going to be a pack fight because nobody else is slowing this dog down, and dogs need balance in order to keep themselves safe.
Yeah. Yeah, dog parks are a chaotic place. Oh my God. And it's not just about the dogs, it's about the people that's there, because most people are clueless. That's why they're there, because they don't know. Like I was clueless. I would walk in, let Kane off leash, and he would just go off. I would not know where Kane was until I had to call him back in. And thankfully Kane is, he is naturally smart instincts. Like when I never taught him recall, but yet he would listen to me if he came. So, but if I took Bubbles in, it would have been
that would not be good. You would be in jail.
Even Max, because Max at first, before he started to go to day camp and really learn how to socialize, he was too excited, too happy. He was the happy-go-lucky dog that would jump on everybody, that would want to chase after every dog. Like he had that energy built up. And most dog owners, they want to give their dog that experience to help them exercise, to see their dogs happy and to see them around other dogs because they feel like that's what they need. But what would you say is a good way to exercise even your dog at home? I saw you did some things with Obi, like even indoors where you were exercising him there. Yeah.
I'm starting to kind of try to learn scent work. And so I bought a kit, and I've just been kind of figuring it out with Obi. And it wears him out. He has to think really hard and use his nose, and that it mentally drains him. So that's a great form of exercise inside the house. Even just putting your dog on a leash and really slowly walking them up the stairs around the house.
Or even taking them to the dog park and walking them around the dog park, right? Walking them on the outside of that dog park. It's, if you are intent on bringing your dog to the dog park, take a couple laps around first. Don't just go straight to. Try to get your dog to walk with you before you enter that gate. But for sure, take the leash off when you go in there. I think there are a lot of people that no matter how many, other ways of exercising their dogs that they hear, the easiest way is the dog park. And I think that, I know a lot of clients that understand that I don't like the dog park, but they kind of look at me and they're like, I still do it. So then I go, okay, fine. Let's find the healthiest way of doing it then. Right. Yeah. I think another thing would be that I hear a lot about dogs claiming people. If you are, first of all, don't sit down at the dog park at all.
So in the dog park we used to go to in Atlanta all the time, people would bring like picnics. They had picnic tables in there. People would be eating full like sandwiches, Dogs would be on the table, hiding underneath them. It was just
don't sit down at the dog park, continue moving. Because the second you sit down, if you do have that kind of dog, or not even if you do, if there's that kind of dog there that can't find its human, it might come into your space, take your space, and start claiming you, right? Meaning if another dog approaches, that dog is going to kind of say back off. If it does that to the wrong dog, of course, there's going to be a fight. I mean, that I would never bring food into a dog park, no matter if it's for dogs or not. I would also never bring a child into a dog park. I mean, younger than probably 8-10 years old, we're not going into the dog park because it's too much. And even if it's like dogs running, your kid's going to get knocked over. And yet, like, once again, you don't know if everybody's vaccinated, and there's not a lot, but there are some diseases that dogs can carry that humans can get. And so that's just not a good idea ever. But if you're going to do it, drain the energy from your dog first, walk around a little bit. I have people a lot working on recall off of the fence, right? So don't get so close that you've got a bunch of dogs in the dog park that are like all now fighting to smell your dog, because that can create an issue in there. But maybe try practicing some recall drills on a long line with like your dog kind of looking at the dog park like, oh, that looks fun. And then call them back to you. And once you do, 10, 15 minutes of that, if you need to go in there, if it's like, I mean, part of your religion, you've got to do it, then go in there.
Or the opposite of that, the dogs that are fearful or anxious about the other dogs, using it as contrastive feeling and working on those coping mechanisms with place. That's a really good exercise.
Yeah, and listen to your dog. So if you walk your dog in there and they are nervous and they're hiding under the table, don't go back.
Yeah, I had one lady when I was working OB outside the dog park. She took her dog in for less than a minute, tail tucked, hiding the entire time. When she left, she was like, he doesn't like it here, but I just want him to get exercise. And we actually had a really good conversation.
Good. You told me about that.
Yeah, it was a really good conversation. But I don't think she's going to take her dog park to the dog to the dog park anymore, because the dog doesn't like it.
Yeah. And why would the dog? I mean, why should the dog? There's plenty of dogs that would enjoy it and do enjoy it, but that's not for every dog, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If your dog loves the dog park, challenge yourself. Like, if you go once a week and you meet a certain group of humans there, which most people do, they kind of have like friend groups that go all at one time. See if maybe you can convince at least one or two, or ideally all of them, to walk with you one day before, and then do like 10 minutes of playtime at the end. So then that way you're not creating this expectation of the dog of you pull into the parking lot, you zoom out the car, you zoom into the gate of the dog park, or you get pulled into it, and you just don't exist the second that you turn into the parking lot of the park. Yeah. That's what you are working against. If you have to go to the dog park, it's not my dog. I don't live with you. It's not my suggestion to do so, but I can't, if it works for you, do it. It's just, how are you doing it? Yeah. And then how are you advocating for your dog when you're in there? Don't bring your phone in there. Your eyes better be on your dog if you're in there. That is not a time to like sit and work in Instagram or whatever. You are bringing something that you love very much, and you're putting it in a very like chaotic situation. You better be there to watch that dog. That's not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different ways to exercise your dog, like we talked about today. And, for this episode is really just to bring more awareness to dog parks and to help you understand what it means to your dog and how you can advocate for your dog at a dog park. We talked about all the different things that you could do to exercise your dog. Is it Sniff Spot? Is that what you?
Yeah, Sniff Spot.
Sniff Spot is a great alternative.
I really hope I got that right. It's really cool. Yeah, yeah, it is really cool.
Or if you have a group of friends at the dog park that you all show up with, maybe like try to do it at people's houses instead. Yeah. Do a small social group that you guys can all be mindful and intentional and have a little safer of a socialization.
Or find a small scale daycare.
Yeah.
That would be another good way if you want to drop them off for the day. If you have that income that you can kind of dedicate to your dog socialization, find a small scale daycare. We talked about in that episode with Connor, kind of your different types of daycares, what to look for, or find a friend that has a dog and walk with them. That is still socialization. And I cannot say that enough. That is the highest form of socialization, is two dogs moving together. That it does not have to be play. Don't assume socialization equals play. That's not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we came to a good point here at the episode where we discuss a lot of good things. And, you know, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email us. And, you know, I think we did a lot. We've talked about a lot of good things in this episode. And the next episode, we're going to talk about when your family is not on the same page as you with training. And I think we all experience that at some point. I mean, I do.
And it's not all of our partners.
It's not every single person at this table.
Well, that would be a good one too. I think that we'll have a lot to say about that one. So sure. Thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, and don't forget,
practice makes progress. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Think Like a Dog Podcast and follow at Mirror Image Canine for training tips. If you have any questions, please reach out to us via email at info@thinklikeadogpodcast.com.